Shekalim. Here. Shekalim. Shekalim. Hey Aleph. These are the administrators who were in the temple. Yochanan ben Pinchas over the tokens. Akiah ben over the Sachim. Matasyahu ben Shmuel over the lot. Besakiah over the bird offerings. This Besakiah is Mordecai of Megillah Esther. So why is he called Besakiah? Because he was able to open up mysterious matters and investigate them, and he knew 70 languages. Ben Akiah over the treatment of stomach disorders. Nehemiah over the digger of pits. Gavini the crier. Ben Geber over the locking of the gates. Ben Beva over the whip. Ben Azar over the cymbal, Hungras, a Levi over the singing, the Garment family over the preparation of the panna bread, Avitanis family over the preparation of the incest, Eleazar over the curtains, and Pinchas over the vestments. These may not be less than three treasures. There may not be less than three treasurers in the temple, nor less than 7 superiors, nor my financial authority be set up over the community with less than 2 officers, except for Akiah, who is in charge of the treatment of stomach disorders, and Eleazar, who is in charge of the curtains, because most of the community accepted them over itself. There were 4 different tokens in the temple, and inscribed upon them were the Hebrew words for calf, ram, kid, and sinner, respectively. Ben Azai says there were 5. Inscribed upon them were the Aramaic words for calf, ram, kid, indigent sinner, and wealthy sinner. The calf token serves for the nesachim of cattle, whether adult or young, male or female. The kid token serves for the nesachim of flock, whether adult or young, male or female, except for adult rams. The ram token serves for the nesachim of rams only, and the sinner token serves for the nesachim of the 3 animals comprising the offering of mitzorah. Okay.
Okay. Now, as we mentioned just a minute ago, there are 2 important players in this scheme over here. There was Yochanan who sells the tokens, and Akiah who receives the tokens and hands over the nesachim according to what they bought. Okay. Mishu mevakesh nesachim. So somebody who wants to purchase nesachim, olech lo etzel Yochanan shehu mamune ala chosamo. So he goes first to Yochanan, who's the guy in charge of the tokens. The nosen lo maos, and he gives him cash. And he gets a token. Now he comes to Akiah on Nesachim. And he gives him the token. Okay, nice simple system. So then Akiah comes to Yochanan with a load of tokens. And Akiah hands over all of the tokens, and he receives cash in exchange for the tokens. Now, what happens if things don't balance? In an ideal world, everything should be perfect, but somebody drops a token, somebody or some cash disappears, or whatever. There's some imbalance between the number of tokens and the.
I lost you right after you said in an ideal world everything was balanced, and then you cut out.
Okay, so that was just me sort of padding my observations. But yeah, so in an ideal world you would have a balance. Are you still there? Because your video is frozen.
Oh, you said in an ideal world, and then it stopped.
I should stop saying things about ideal worlds.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. No, so basically, if everything balances, then Shalom on Israel. And but if there's an imbalance, that's what the Mishna deals with next. So what happens if there's extra cash left over after Akiah has claimed all of his tokens? So there's extra cash now. Okay, so that money goes to the mikdash. There's the imbalance Yochanan doesn't get to take home the change. Okay. And what happens if there's too much cash? If there's not enough cash.
Okay.
Now Yochanan was the one who's responsible for the cash, and Akiah's got more tokens than he can pay for. So Yochanan is responsible for that. So he has to take it out of his own pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sheyad hekdesh ala elyona. we always say that that Hekdesh has the advantage,
Okay.
and therefore it was therefore he has to pay up to himself. So he doesn't get the benefit if there's extra money, but he doesn't. But he does take the loss if there's money missing. Okay.
I think that's where Las Vegas got it from, that the house always has the upper hand.
Yep.
So, right.
House advantage.
Temple treasury, right.
House advantage, right? That's the bias. That's right.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Now, what happens if somebody buys himself a token and he gets over to Achia and he says, give me the Sachem, and he cuts his pockets and finds, oops, I've dropped my tokens. So you can't find them. Okay, so you lost your tokens. Let's see if we can do anything with it. So we wait and he say, okay, so wait until close of business. Come back at the end of the day. You've lodged your claim, and then Achia comes over to Yochanan with all of the tokens, and they do their balancing. And what happens if they see, oh look, Yochanan's got extra money left over because we didn't hand over enough tokens. So that makes sense. So that's a fair claim that you've got over there. No, and they say, fine, have your cash. Okay, they either give him a cash refund or they'll give him a lesachim, whichever he prefers. Okay, v'im lav lo hayalo, and if there's not enough money to cover his allegedly lost token, if there's no money left over, lo hayalo, that's too bad, you lost it. Okay, now they also had to take measures in case of Ramayan, of cheats. Right? They would write the name of the day on each token, because what's an obvious scam that somebody can pull? He goes to Yochanan and buys a token, and then he comes and says, "Oh, I lost my token." So at the end of the day, he comes and says, well, let's have I lost my token. And they find that, yes, there's a missing token over here. Here, you can have your cash back. So he takes his cash back. And then the next day he comes over and says, yeah, I've got a token. Give me Nesachim. So it's an obvious scam. So therefore they had to put a date stamp on the tokens to make sure that you can't use a token past the day that you bought it.
And no, that's all right. Never mind. I answered the question myself. Okay.
Kati also mentioned some other versions of the scam that could be. Let me share. That people might hold on to their tokens expecting an increase in the price. So if they know, if somebody, for example, knows that there's a shortage of grapes in this season, so he goes and stocks up on wine tokens, so that he's got them and he can resell them or whatever at a later stage in order to make a profit. Remember the asimonim?
Yeah, the phones, right?
Public phones. In the days of Israeli hyperinflation, people. The currency was devaluing fast, but asimonim, their value remained kind of constant, because you could always make a phone call with an asimon.
Right.
So people were actually investing in asimonim. They were buying and stockpiling all these asimonim against their currency, because their currency was devaluing from day to day, but the asimonim held their value.
And then they would sell it to people who needed them.
Yeah.
Everybody has a racket all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Mishna Vav. Shtei leshachos hayu b'mikdash. There were two offices, let's say, or chambers in the mikdash. Achas lishkas. I mean, there were obviously a lot more, but this Mishnah is dealing with these particular two now. There was one called Lishkas Chashayim, the Chamber of Secrets. This is not Harry Potter. Okay. Ve'echas lishkas hakelim, and the other one was the chamber of the vessels. Lishkas chashayim. So what's the chamber of secrets? So people would make tzedakah donations there in secret. V'aniyim b'nei tovim misparnesim mitocha b'chashai. And the poor people who had come from good families, in other words, they had lost their fortune, so they were embarrassed to take tzedakah openly. They would go into this room, ki'ilu, that they're putting money in, and they would take money out. And that way they could preserve their dignity by only taking money by taking money in secret, and people thinking that they're actually giving. Lishkas Shekalim, so what's the vessel chamber? Call me Shehu Misnadet Kli, somebody who wants to donate a Kli to the Mikdash, Zorko Lesucha, toss it in there. I don't know. It's interesting that they use the word Zorek. Why not Meniach? Why not put it down gently? But they would toss them in. I'm not sure why it chooses this. They choose this particular verb. And every 30 days, and every 30 days the treasurers would open up this room. And if they looked and said, "Hey, this one's actually quite useful," they would use it for the mikdash. And all the rest of the alta zachen they would sell, and with the money they would take it and use it and use the money for temple upkeep.
Here, Shaul, it says in my Mishnah, it says the God-fearing people would deposit their money into it quietly. Mm-hmm. And the poor sons of good families supported themselves from it discreetly.
Yes.
They put it quietly, and they didn't want people to know about it, so they discreetly put the money out without many people knowing. So, okay. By the way, that's a good trivia question for the kids on Shabbos. What came from the treasury that was in Harry Potter? What was
Yeah.
See what that works.
The Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah. They call it this Chamber of Discreet. Oh. Okay. All right.
Aleph Hey.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. Well, I'm sorry. Though they have said they do not seize collateral from women, slaves, or minors, nevertheless, they do. If they contributed the half shekel, we accept it from them. However, if a Gentile or Scythian contributed, we do not accept it from them. Nor do we accept from them bird offerings of zavim, zavos, and women after childbirth, nor sin offerings or guilt offerings, but we accept vow offerings and gift offerings from them. This is the general rule. Whatever may be vowed or donated, we accept from them. Whatever may not be vowed or donated, we do not accept from them. And so it has been made clear by Ezra, as it is said, it is not for you and for us to build a house for our God. The following are obligated to pay a kalbon: Levium, Yisraelim, proselytes, emancipated slaves, but not Kohanim, women, slaves, or minors. Those who contribute for a Kohen, woman, slave, or minor is exempt. And one who contributed for himself and for his colleague, he is obligated for only use for only one kalbon. Reb Meir says two. The one who gave a selah and takes back a shekel must pay 2 kalbonos. And one who contributes for a poor person or his neighbor or his townsman is exempt from a kalbon, but if he lent the half shekel to them, he is obligated to pay the kalbon. Brothers who are partners, when they are obligated to pay a kalbon, they are exempt from the animal tithe. But when they are obligated to give the animal tithe, they are exempt from the kalbon. How much is a kalbon? A silver ma. And the words of Reb Meir, but the Chachamim say half a ma. Okay.
Next.
All right.
Pesachim Aleph Daled.
Reb Meir says, we may eat chametz the entire 5th hour, and we must burn it on the onset of the 6th. So Yehuda says we may eat chametz the entire 4th hour, but we may suspend it the entire 5th hour, and we must burn it on the onset of the 6th hour. But Yehuda also said 2 loaves of a Thanksgiving offering, which had become unfit, were placed on the roof of the portico. As long as they lay there, with all the people would eat chametz. When one was removed, they suspended. They would neither eat nor burn the chametz, and when both were removed, all the people would begin to burn their chametz. Rabbi Gamil said non-consecrated chametz may be eaten with the entire 4th hour. Truma, which is chametz, may be eaten the entire 5th hour, and we must burn all chametz at the onset of the 6th hour. Rabbi Hanina, administrator of the Kohanim, says in all the days of the Kohanim, never did they refrain from burning sacrificial meat that they had been contaminated by a secondary tumah together with sacrificial meat that had been contaminated by a primary tumah. Although by doing so, they added contamination to its contamination. Rabbi Akiva added, saying, in all the days of the Kohanim, never did they refrain from lighting oil that had become unfit through contact with a tevel yom, in a lamp that had been contaminated by a corpse, although by doing so, they added contamination to its contamination.
Okay.
All right. We should be in decorum.
Yeah.
Okay. If he set aside his Bikurim, then they were plundered, or they decayed, were stolen, or lost, or they rendered unclean, he brings others in their stead, but does not recite. And the others are not liable to the added fifth. If they become unclean in the temple court, he scatters them and does not recite. And whence do we know that that he is responsible for them until he brings them to the temple mount? Because it is written, the first of the first fruits of your hand you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. This teaches us that he is responsible for them until he brings them to the temple mount. And if he bought of one kind and recited, and then bought of another kind, he does not recite. And these bring and recite from Shavuos till Sukkot, from the 7 species, from the 7 first of the mountains, from the dates of the valleys, and from oil olives from beyond the date. Rabbi Yosef Agili says one does not bring Bikurim from beyond the Jordan, since this is not a land flowing with milk and honey.
Okay. Zavim. Hey, Aleph.
One who touches a zav, or whom the rav, one who touches a zav, or whom the zav touches, or one who moves a zav, or whom the zav moves, contaminates food and beverages and immersible utensils through contact, but not through carrying. Rabbi Yoshua stated a general rule: any person who contaminates his clothing during the time of his contact with a source of contamination contaminates food and beverages to the degree that they will become beginning level, and contaminated another person's hands to the degree that they will become sheni, but does not contaminate people or earthenware utensils. After his separation from the horse that rendered him tameh, he contaminates beverages to the degree that they will become beginning level, and food in another person's hands in the degree that they will become sheni, but does not contaminate clothing. Furthermore, they stated another general rule: anything that is carried on top of a zav is tameh, whereas anything that the zav is carried upon is tahor, except for something that is suitable for use as a couch or a seat, and except for a person. How so? In a case where the finger of a zav is under a row of bricks and the tahor person is on top of the row of bricks, that person contaminates 2 and invalidates 1. When he separates, he contaminates 1 and invalidates 1. If the tameh zav is on top of the row of bricks and the tahor person is underneath it, that person contaminates 2 and invalidates 1. When he separates, he contaminates 1 and invalidates 1. In a case where food, beverages, a couch, a seat, and ordinary utensils are on top of the row of bricks, they contaminate 2 and disqualify 1. When they separate, they contaminate 1 and disqualify 1. But in a case where a couch or seat are underneath the row of bricks, they contaminate 2 and disqualify 1. When they separate, they further contaminate 2 and disqualify 1. And food, beverages, and ordinary vessels are underneath the row of bricks, they remain tahor. Because they said anything that carries or is carried upon a contaminated couch is tahor, except for a person, anyone who carries or is carried upon as an animal carcass is tahor, except for one who moves it. If Eliezer says, providing that he carries it, anything that carries or is carried upon a human corpse is tahor, except for it forms a roof over the corpse, and except for a person who moves the corpse. If part of the zav, the tameh person, was resting on the tahor person. I'm sorry?
We're done. That's 3.
Okay.
Tamura, hey base.
If she gave birth to two males, one of them is offered as an ola, and the second one is sold to those who have an ola or obligation, and its proceeds are chulin. But if she gave birth to two females, one of them is offered as a shlomin, and the second is sold to those who have a shlomin obligation, and its proceeds are chulin. If she gave birth to a tumtum or an androgen, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says no sanctity takes effect upon them. If one declares that the fetus of this pregnant animal is an ola, and she herself is a shlomin, his declaration stands. If he's declared the pregnant animal is a shlomin, and her fetus is an ola, the fetus is an offspring of shlomin, and these are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Yossi says if he intended to say this from the outset, since it is impossible to utter two designations simultaneously, his declaration stands. However, if after he declared this pregnant animal is hereby shlomin, he then reconsidered and declared this fetus is an ola, and the fetus is the offering of a shlomin. If one declares this animal is hereby a tamora for an ola, a tamora for a shlomin, it is therefore a tumavor for an ola. These are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Yossi says if he intended to say this from the outset, since it is impossible to utter two designations simultaneously, his declaration stands. However, if after he declared this is hereby a tamora for an ola, and he then reconsidered, declared a tamora for a shlomin, it is a tamora for an ola.
His first words stick. Okay. All right, Baba Kama.
The bull is not like a mava.
Stop,
And
stop. You're standing in the middle of the Mishnah.
What's wrong with that? Okay. The primary damages are the bull, the pit, the mava, and the fire. The bull is not like the mava, nor is the mava like the bull. These two, which are living things, are not like the fire, which is not a living thing, nor are those whose manners are go forth and damage like the pit, whose manner is not to go forth and damage. The common feature in them is that the manner is to damage, and you are responsible to watch them. And when it damages, the damager is obligated to pay for the damage with the best of the land. Anything that I have obligated to watch, I have perpetrated its damage. If I partially perpetrated its damage, I am obligated to pay as though I had completely perpetrated its damage. The law of damages applies to property that is not subject to Ma'ila, property of Jews, property that is owned and anywhere except on the premises owned by the damager, and the premises of the damagee and the damager. When he damages, the damager is obligated to pay for the damage with the best of the land. The evaluation is in money, and the payment is made with money's worth, in the presence of a court and the testimony of witnesses who are free men and Jews. Women are governed by the laws of damages, and the damagee and the damager are included in the payment. Okay. Good. Okay. Okay. Have a good day. Enjoy. And Mr. Shem, I'll see you tomorrow, either before or after. Okay. Thank you. Be well. Bye.